all related to incidents where he spray painted the words penis man on various buildings and objects.
Okay.
But is Schomer the penis man, Cons?
I don't know. I would like to know for sure, though.
All right, everybody. Revelry, revelry, revelry. That's already been said in the intro, but welcome back to another edition of Zero Blog 30. It is your host, Chaps. Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
This isn't Chaps' voice. It's your host,
Goose.
Kate. Chaps is out today. The haters are saying he has diarrhea. We will never disclose. We will never say. Loose lips sink ships. We're not saying a word. Before we jump into everything, I had a great weekend this weekend. It was my birthday.
Yes. Happy birthday again. We all wished you happy birthday. I think the internet, Kate, you have the distinct but not common trait at Barstool Sports where I think basically everybody likes you. So you get a lot of love when your birthday comes around. Would you agree?
Depends.
Disagree?
You know what? Being liked here by the masses at large, so that it goes in a cycle.
Yes.
You're on top of the world. You're a national treasure. And then the next minute you need to go. You're out of here. And then you're like, oh no. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, she's all right. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, oh, she's the best. And then, so it comes, it's like right now I'm at the top of a cycle, pal, which means I'm headed for a crash real soon, but I'm enjoying
We'll brace for that when it comes, but you're doing well. Yeah.
No, I went down, first of all, Friday did the Yak, a show here, and a singing hot dog came in to sing for me and wish me a happy birthday. And the hot dog said he was sent by Dave Portnoy, our boss. I have a confession to make. I hired the hot dog to come in.
I love that. I need to know how you came up with that, though.
Well, it was a slow Friday at the office. In the summertime, a lot of people work from home and a lot of people were traveling for shows. And I'm like, man, what can I do to make the Yak fun? It's this live show that goes from 1 to 2-ish every day on Barstool. And I was like, oh, I should hire a singing telegram to come in. Because at Christmas, a couple years ago, I hired a male stripper to come in and dress like Santa Claus. And that was a hoot. So I was like, let me see. And this was like with an hour before the show started. But it's New York City. So you can find anything you need at the last minute. I found a company that was like, we can get you a hot dog in 30 minutes or less. A human hot dog can be at your door immediately. I was like, sold. I spent over $200 on it, but that's okay.
That's it. I feel like that's not bad.
And
no, I tell you what, I feel like that's not bad.
20%.
Okay, that's very nice of you. That was very nice of you.
But anyway, and then I said it was from my boss, even though everybody was like, Dave would never send you a singing hot dog for your birthday.
Yeah, because Dave has been on record as saying he's not a big birthday guy because he is of the mindset that you don't really have to do anything to have a birthday. You just have to exist for an extra year. So that was very surprising that he would go to those lengths for any of his employees.
So it was me. I hired the hot dog, and then Big Cat got me a cake. It was the whale ice cream cake.
Oh, the Fudgy the Whale. Yeah.
And I got to eat the Fudgy the Whale tail.
Nice.
And then all the interns brought me flowers. They brought me roses and said all the things they like about me. I have another confession to make.
Yes.
I gave them the roses ahead of time. Literally everything good that happened on my birthday was stuff that I bought and then made other people give to me.
I don't really hate that, because I think if you rely on other people, I think a lot of times they'll let you down. So you know what? Why not ensure a good time Friday? I respect it. Honest
to God, I had the best time and it was all by me. It was all made by me. I made that good time for myself. Anyway, afterwards, get out of the car or get done work, head home. Pat was off to Nashville for the weekend, packed up the baby. We went down to Wildwood to Party Pegs. There was indeed chicken parm. There was meatball. And you know what else? Best of all, icy cold as we watched the sunset from our little Wildwood balcony. Whistle Pig, my friend.
My goodness.
Whistle Pig piggyback. This time I went with the ginger lime because it was very refreshing. It's light. It's summery. I still drink mine on ice in a glass, but you can drink it straight from the can. The piggyback is made with 100% rye whiskey for bold, full spice flavor. It's aged 6 years and has I got to start that again.
No, just keep going.
No, I'm talking about the rye smash is what I was drinking because I didn't bring a bottle of piggyback, but I should have. The piggyback is their 100% rye whiskey, bold, full spice flavor. It's aged 6 years, has a high 96.56 proof. It's the first 100% rye whiskey, perfect for sipping and mixing. As we've said before, like you guys were talking about when you first got into whiskey on the last show, and when you first, for me, it's writing. I like to pour myself a glass with a little bit of ice, and I need to get the giant ball cube, just sit back and just slowly, just a nice slow sipper, a nice enjoyer.
Yeah, I owe you a link. They're not expensive, those ice cube trays, and they're perfect for what you're looking for. But when you do that, who do you pretend you are? What famous writer in history do you pretend you are?
Me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm hiring the hot dogs, buying the flowers.
I would have thought
the blogs about farts.
You picture yourself as like Ernest Hemingway or something.
Yes, I do. Well, I feel that way when I'm sipping my Whistle Pig. Trust us on this one. It is truly 100% the good stuff. How do you drink your Whistle Pig? Again, I drink mine on the rocks, and then I do their rye smash. You can get your own bottle at shop.whistlepigwhiskey.com or at a local retailer. I can promise you, it kicked off my birthday weekend to a fabulous start, especially because my aunt was like, take a load off. I'll help you watch the baby. You go sit on the porch. I'll play with him inside for a little bit. And I just sat there and watching the sunset, sipping away.
That's awesome. And we had good weather the whole weekend. It was pretty awesome.
It was great. We were at the beach with the little guy for like 4.5 hours on Saturday, which is unheard of.
And then did he just sleep like a rock after that?
He did, and he never sleeps. He slept like a rock. So yeah, it was a good. What did you get into?
Friday we stayed local and just went out to dinner, but then that turned into going out to watch the Ranger game, which turned into a little bit of a later evening than we had originally planned. But then I think for the first time since getting back from the honeymoon, my wife and I went separate directions. I went down the shore and played golf, and she went to her girlfriend's house. Mm-hmm. But then Sunday we had a charity softball tournament that we play in every year. The shout out to the Coach Classic. It's a lot of fun. It's a very relaxed day. It's fun for people that, there's like a billion kids running around. There's a raffle, there's softball. Two things that I took away from the day is, number one, I put it on my Instagram story, but I'll show you right here. I did not put sunscreen on, and if you can see, I wore Rosie
I
wore a backwards hat with no sunscreen, so I got sunburned for the millionth time in my life, and I don't know how long it'll take for me to realize maybe you should put sunscreen on if you're going to be outside all day like an idiot. But then the other thing that I was really feeling today when I woke up, whenever I do any sort of sport, like I'll stretch or whatever, but I always go into it thinking I can just do things the way I always have, and I can ignore the fact that I'm older.
Yeah, getting rickety.
I haven't played softball. The last time I played softball was when
big
Barstool
swing of the old spine.
Yeah, when Barstool had a team, which was we haven't had a team for like a few summers, so I haven't been running around bases or like moving suddenly in the outfield, and I hate to admit it, but I am sore today from playing softball, which is tough to admit. It's a little bit of a strike to my ego, but I think it's very brave of me that I'm actually saying this out loud, because I like to pride myself on being an athlete, and maybe I still am, but maybe I'm also just getting older and my body doesn't.
You're just old now. Not. Sorry to break it to you. You know who's not having it? Sounds like you had a good weekend. You know who had a bit of a rough weekend?
Who was that?
Our old buddy Penis Man in Arizona.
Who's that?
Long time stoolie Penis Man. A civilian.
I guess before we even get into it, maybe we should list out the rounds, because we still haven't done that.
Yep, that's what we're doing. Round number 1, a civilian brethren in the dick drawing game hath been taken down by Arizona police. Let's pour one out for the city's infamous Penis Man. Round number 2, yes, we're talking about Top Gun again, but hear us out. The only thing high this time is recruiting numbers. Got some stats for you there. Just a cool Twitter thread that I saw about it. Round number 3, if you ever deployed to the Middle East, you know that dust storms could be a major problem. Well, they're getting worse, and they are starting to really fuck up daily life out there. Round number 4, we are smack dab in the middle of wedding season, which begs the question, do you need to feed your guests? We have an Am I the Asshole that tests that very issue. Spoiler alert, they are the assholes. They're Disney adults.
Oh my God, the worst.
That's you're automatically an asshole. Round number 5, troops are driving buses, substitute teaching, and now some think it's them who should be in control of attempting to stop school shootings. The latest in pointing at solutions that are everything but quite possibly the main one, but such is life. So smooth Kate, I always get to sit back.
Smooth Katie Barstool.
I always get to sit back when Chaps is on the sticks. We're the A drivers, you're kind of sitting there being like, oh, maybe slow down around this curb, whatever. I'm on my phone and whatever. He's doing all the ad reads. And so you don't realize until you're doing it. Oh, this takes a little bit of better help, my friends. I could be a better help. Now a word from our sponsor. Life can be overwhelming and many people are burned out without even knowing it. Symptoms can include lack of motivation, irritability, fatigue, and more. I know that every now and then I'll say, man, I've kind of gotten myself into a bit of a rut. And then I'll just keep doing the same shit over and over and over. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm still in this rut. Absolutely nothing is changing. That's maybe where BetterHelp could come in and help you. Something a little different. Trying therapy out. We associate burnout with work, but that's not the only case. Any of our roles in life can lead us to feel burned out. I know for me, I got so many happy birthday texts, Cons. I'm so popular and so beloved that I said, this is too much. I'm burned out on my popularity right now. It's just driving me out. BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you to prioritize yourself. Talking with someone can help you figure out what's causing stress in your life. And again, I feel like the whole crew, the whole squad's in therapy. BetterHelp makes it easy to find the person and the fit that's right for you. And a lot of times too, I think especially as we become older adults, like we see that our other friends, like in our 20s, like I would dish to all my friends, here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But then you see now they have kids and they have all sorts of stuff going on. And sometimes I don't want to, you're never a burden to your friends, but I'm like, man, I see that my buddy already has a lot going on. I don't want to dump this on her. Again, that's where BetterHelp can come in. You're talking to somebody who's just completely objective, just out there listening to everything that you say, and you're not putting anything on anybody else. That's exactly what they're there for. And
the best part about BetterHelp is they're actual professionals as opposed to your friends or maybe just a bunch of memes from an Instagram account that you think apply to your life. That can actually help you.
BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/0. That's betterhelp.com/0. Nailed it. Absolutely crushing it. Yes. Boom. All right. Penis Man.
Who's that?
So you think, oh, they're drawing dicks all over the place. It's actually somebody writing the words penis man. The actual words, penis man, with a smiley face. Many believe that the infamous penis man graffiti artist who tagged dozens of spots in Arizona was brought to heavy-handed justice by Tempe police this week. But containing the spirit of penis man will be much harder than anyone could have expected. According to the Phoenix New Times, a man named Dustin Schomer posted on Facebook Saturday morning that he was arrested in his Phoenix condo by a SWAT team. They raided my condo and vehicle, swarmed my entire complex in West Phoenix with 25 heavily armed SWAT officers, and pointed silenced assault rifles in my face, he wrote.
It's like a little much.
That's a little much for penis man. He was booked on 16 counts of aggravated criminal damage, 8 counts of criminal damage, and 1 count of criminal trespassing, all related to incidents where he spray painted the words penis man on various buildings and objects.
Okay.
But is Schomer the penis man, Cons?
I don't know. I would like to know for sure, though.
Yeah, the one that's been tagging spots across the state for 2 months and has captured nationwide attention. Schomer says no, he's just a disciple of Penis Man, and he's only done a few of the taggings. I'm not the original, Schomer told Phoenix New Times on Monday. There are hundreds of copycats with very distinctively different handwriting. And there's a bunch of photos that I've included in here. There's actually the words Penis Man have been showing up across Arizona so frequently. There's a Twitter account at Fans of Penis Man, the Penis Man Appreciation Society, where whenever anybody sees a Penis Man tag, they add it to this account. And there's tons of photos. Schomer says that he heard some people in a Tempe bar talking about the real, seemingly phantom-like Penis Man and got inspired to do some of his own. I thought it was a good message, he explained. He doesn't see, honestly, it's better than all the other signs I'm seeing out there. True. It's not political. No. It's just straight up Penis Man. Also, there's Penis Woman. Penis Woman is popping up all the way, even up in Portland and Oregon and whatever. Penis Woman is starting to make a scene.
I especially like the one post you have here. Everyone is penis man till it's time to do penis man shit. If that ain't true, I don't know what is. It's interesting to me because, as we all know, art is subjective, right? Like you go to some of these, especially more modern art, you go to a museum and you see this canvas and it's just blue paint and you're like, how the hell is that art? But it's art. It depends on who's looking at it and it makes sense. So in a way, this is just like modern art because it just speaks to, I think, the power of the internet and the power of people, their desire. And this is not new, but people's desire to belong to something. So I guarantee there's people out there who wanted to go tag something just so they can say they're a part of this movement. Now, some would argue it's a little bit juvenile with its tagging, but nonetheless,
Okay,
again,
officer.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I think it's interesting. And also I'm a little disappointed that one police department put in that many resources just to get somebody who's been tagging different things around town. That's a little excessive in my opinion.
Yeah, it's extremely excessive. If that is the case, that's absolutely wild. And I want to know, like, who tipped off that it was this? Was he caught on camera? Was he caught whatever? And Penis Man is harmless. If I see a giant thing, it shows the side of buildings and like billboards that have the word Penis Man on it. If I see it while I'm driving, I'm laughing a little bit, I'm having a good time. The most creative one I saw was a pair of shoes thrown over, like you see in the city, like a pair of high tops thrown over the wires. And on the bottom of each shoe was penis and man. So really getting creative with it. I appreciate that. Side note, I went to look for the Schomer Guys Facebook. So I went on my own Facebook and I typed in the bar Penis Man into the search bar. But before it aggregates like the news and stuff like that, any penis posts that you have will pop up. And I joined Facebook in like 2004, 2005. I have countless. I mean, I was talking about penis before it was cool, just so you know.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it. But my favorite one that popped up was I was out with my cousins and my cousin got a penis shaped clam strip. You ever have a clam strip? It's just deep fried clams. And if that doesn't look exactly like a penis.
No, yeah, that is interesting. That is very accurate.
Some penis posts out there have done good. A man in New Zealand who was tired of potholes in his town spray painted giant dicks over each of them. And the town had to fix it. They had to get rid of all those dicks. So that the Penis Man for good.
Using art for good. I love it. Do you know what it means? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say, final note. If I'm a teenager in Tempe, Arizona, and I see how stirred up the police are about Penis Man, buddy, I'm tagging everything in Penis Man.
Yeah,
everything's coming up Penis Man in Arizona.
Right. This is classic. If you want to stop this, you can't you can't be showing up to people's houses with SWAT team, because then they're just going to think it's actually a big deal, when if you just leave it alone, it'll probably go away eventually. But I was going to ask you, do you know what it means when they tie stinkers together and throw them over power lines?
No.
It's like urban myth, but it's said to signify like gang turf, or sometimes if a member of a gang was killed in that area.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. That's like in New York City, when you see the white bicycles on the side of the road, that means a cyclist was killed there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're all over New York City. You'll see a bicycle painted white and chained to the side of the road or a sign or whatever, and that's where a cyclist was killed. And it kind of reminds people like, drive carefully, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I've actually never noticed that, but now probably I will, now that you've pointed it out. Speaking of, I think one of our other colleagues, Content Kim, just recently decided to drive for the first time in New York City. And I'm kind of curious how that went, because anybody who's ever driven in New York City, Manhattan specifically, it's the Wild West. You have to be on your shit and paying attention, because otherwise bad things can happen, like cyclists getting hit unexpectedly. Oh, this is not exactly happy, but I have to tell you what happened on Friday night. We were standing on the sidewalk outside the restaurant waiting to go in, and I heard a gentleman scream a name, and it was his dog's name. Dog got off the leash, ran into traffic. Its head hit the, yes, ultimately the dog was fine. His head hit the side of a car. I heard the thump and I was like, whoa, I felt so bad. The car didn't stop though. The car just like kept going. My only guess. Yeah, sorry about that. That was really inappropriate thing to talk about.
But the dog was fine?
Yeah, the dog was fine. The dog walked away. It was okay. I don't know how it got off its leash. I felt really bad for the gentleman. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought that up.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, all right, my bad.
Anyway, we're peanuts, and that's Penis Man for you, everyone.
Shit.
Better help. Top Gun, round number 2. Yes, I'm still talking about it. So there's this guy on Twitter named Nathan Bao, and he just finds like he talked about what's that new Drive to Survive F1 racing or whatever show on Netflix.
Yeah.
What's the name of it? Drive to whatever.
I think it's Drive to Survive. Hold on, I'll Google that for you. Keep going.
There's this Netflix series that follows like F1.
Yeah, Formula One, Drive to Survive. You were correct. Yep.
Like the Indy cars kind of that do the street courses, and it's huge throughout the world, but it could not break into America. Like no matter what they did, it just wasn't getting popular. And then a new guy bought F1 or whatever and was like, no, we're going to make a play for America and we're going to do it through a Netflix. Like we're going to make a series that they won't be able to ignore. And it ended up working out. They went from like, I'm going to make this up, like 6 billion in revenue to like 13 billion in revenue.
Yeah, it was significant.
It was a huge increase and a ton of new followers. Like American races are selling out. The one in Austin, Texas the other year ended up having the biggest amount of people, like 400,000 people, nearly 500,000 people came to watch the race, all because this Netflix show got everybody's attention here in the States. So he kind of like shows how movies and media and like whatever are also sneaky used as advertising a lot of times. And obviously, as we all know, that's the case with Top Gun. And he talks about the original here and the breakdown. Just some interesting facts, though, that I just want to get into real quick. He said the original Top Gun made $357 million at the box office, but its biggest impact, guess how much it boosted recruitment in the Navy, Cons?
I know it boosted it a whole bunch. I don't know the figures behind it though. So I don't know, like 300%. 500%
of a boost.
There you go.
The first Top Gun had a modest $15 million budget, but brought in $357 million. It turned Tom Cruise into a megastar and Goose into a cult legend. But more importantly, it altered the American perception of its military. Top Gun was released 11 years after the Vietnam War, the least popular war in U.S. history. And I would argue, even after Iraq and Afghanistan, I think Vietnam would still be considered the least popular.
I would totally agree with that, because at least with Iraq and Afghanistan, the impetus was a terrorist attack. And, you know, we're not going to get in and start debate like whether we should have been in Iraq or whether we should have stayed in Afghanistan. But ultimately, if you trace it back, it could be traced back to something that was horrible. Whereas you couldn't really do that with Vietnam. And it seemed like we just stuck our nose in something that we didn't belong in.
Yeah. And so movies like Platoon, and there's a bunch of movies coming out that were like super critical of the military and really looked at the military through like a skeptical lens and a negative lens, and military recruitment was struggling. The director's first choice for Maverick turned it down because military sentiment was so bad. He was like, yeah, nope, I don't want anything to do with this Top Gun movie you're talking about. It's going to be terrible. And guess who that was who turned it down?
Well, I'm staring at this sheet, so I won't give it any suspense.
So he what he didn't like was that it was a movie that was trying to make the military positive, and he was like, that's impossible. That's not going to happen. So he got cast in another military movie that was an anti-war film, Full Metal Jacket. It was Private Joker. It was Matthew Modine was the person that the Top Gun producers like really wanted in this role, and he turned it down. He was like, yeah, no, that's going to be a flop.
I didn't know that he was the original choice. So that's
and I mean, it went on to be pretty successful. Seems like they both wound up in the right movie. Releasing into that environment, Top Gun producers had to take a different approach. So they did a few specific things. They only mentioned Vietnam one time. They focused on the Navy, not the Army, because the Army was the bigger, like if you think about Vietnam, you think and they made Maverick and the fighter pilots as a whole look like the coolest people on the planet, which is true. You can take any topic as long as you have hot, cool people. buddy. All right.
Yeah.
I'm sold. I'll watch for a little bit.
True.
It's like those real estate shows in LA and New York where I'm like, these people are terrible, but I can't stop watching because they're so
terrible
cool.
people. Well, not all of them are terrible people, but some of them are terrible people, but they're extremely, extremely attractive. It's unbelievable. And I want to know how many people decided they wanted to be real estate agents because they make it look so glamorous.
Yeah. But anyway, and not that these pilots or whatever are terrible people. The one mention of Vietnam is actually positive in the film. Maverick says that his father was a war hero who passed in Vietnam. This does two things. It avoids the actual horrors of that war, and it puts the war in the past. Oh, way back in Vietnam, way past 11 years ago. That's we're moving forward. It was Maverick's father, not the current generation that was Vietnam. It like really establishes this as a new, totally fresh slate, totally new group. As the movie started to take off, the Navy had a brilliant idea. And I know we've talked about this, set up recruiting stations outside of theaters. The result, a 500% increase in recruiting the year Top Gun was released.
That's like the same thing when you would come out of, I remember Fast and Furious, first time I watched that senior in high school. What is the first thing I did when I got done watching Fast and Furious? Got in my car and drove fast as hell.
Well, and who were the recruiters outside of there? Uber,
yes.
Right? They were like, come drive for Uber. Top Gun shifted the public's perception of the military at a time when that looked impossible. And it doesn't stop there. The military realized the power of content after Top Gun. Now, for a movie to use U.S. equipment, the script has to be approved by the Pentagon. So basically, any military movie using our stuff, and if they don't, they can't afford it. Like they've got to, like if they want it to look realistic, whatever. So it has to be pro-military. And if I'm the military person looking at it, I'm saying, will this help recruitment? And if the answer is yes, then fuck it. Yeah, you can use our tanks or whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't care. 35 years later, Top Gun Maverick looks like another hit. It is the #1 movie in the world and brought in $156 million over opening weekend alone. We'll see if it has the same effect on recruiting. Now, I don't think do you think there will be recruiters outside the theaters? Like, can they still do that even?
I'm sure they can if they really wanted to. I don't know that they will go that route, but I would not be surprised in the least bit if you saw an uptick in recruitment because, again, they made these pilots look cooler than all hell. And the other thing I think what's good about Top Gun, and we talk about it on our show all the time, all the BS that you have to deal with in the military, they avoided all of that, right? There was no part of that movie that made the military look bad in any way, shape, or form.
No.
So if anything, the military probably doesn't want to advertise with our show. I don't know, because we're a little too honest for them. But I could see an uptick. And I've actually even seen on social media some kids posting about how their dad was an actual Top Gun pilot in the Navy for real. And I'm sorry, I will admit it. It does look very cool.
Cool as hell. Yeah, it does look cool as hell. You're right. It's a smart move. And this made me look up the top grossing because this looks like it's on track to be one of the top grossing military movies of all time.
Yeah.
Here's the top 10. And I'm going to start at #1 and then get less. American Sniper, the #1 grossing military movie of all time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And this is just in the US, $547 million it grossed. Then Saving Private Ryan with $481 million, 300. That counts as a military movie. Pearl Harbor, Gone with the Wind, Captain America, Schindler's List, Inglourious Bastards, Rambo: First Blood, and then Lincoln, which counts as a war movie. Those are the top 10 highest grossing. And I have a feeling that Top Gun Maverick's going to weasel its way in there because the original Top Gun's not even on here. It doesn't even make it in.
I mean, it's even after 2 weekends, it's closing in and it might even make this list after 2 weekends. And with how successful it's going to be, it's going to stay in the theaters for a little while longer than I think new movies normally do these days. So I wouldn't be surprised if it overtakes this list. Interestingly to note that, I mean, American Sniper and Saving Private Ryan, those are kind of solemn and sad. So but I mean, they're amazing movies.
Most are. Yeah. And I think that's what, and again, this new Top Gun comes out after another very unpopular war finishes up and you walk out. Cause I mean, we talk about it, but I've been feeling very disillusioned, blah, blah. I still walked out of Top Gun Maverick and I was like, fuck yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Cause it's been 2 weeks now, but no spoilers, but the ending is pretty great. It ends on a high note. So I get it. Good job by them. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets the job done. And compare that. I was looking too. Oh, go on.
Sorry, I just realized they had to have had some technical advisors from the military. If you're out there and you know anybody who is a technical advisor or can put us in touch with, I'd love to talk to the technical advisor for Top Gun 2. That'd be amazing.
Oh yeah. Well, that was one of the guys who spoke before the movie we saw started, was one of the like a pilot who helped consult on the film. So yeah, they're out there. Come through. Give me a jet ride, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please. For the love of Christ, get us on a jet.
Side note, I'm reading off these numbers and I'm like, wow, American Sniper, 547 million. War movies actually are not that popular of a genre as a whole. When you compare it to like superhero movies, like in 2019, Avengers Endgame, nearly $1 billion.
Yeah.
So at the top 10 for superhero movies, if you look at gross, are all higher than like pretty much the amount any military movie the top military movies have made. So, but still 547 million, whatever, nothing to sneeze at.
Nothing to sneeze at. I've never seen any of these superhero movies though. That's just not something I'm into.
You've never seen Black Panther?
No.
Spider-Man?
No.
Avengers?
No. Because you know what it was?
Iron Man?
I didn't read comic books growing up. So I think there's this whole population who grew up with comic books, and for them, this is probably awesome. So I get it. I get why they're popular.
I was too busy shoving those kids in lockers on my way to football practice at West Point to do that.
Sorry, I was busy being an awesome athlete. I didn't have time for comic books. I was reading my playbook. Sorry about it.
Now I know how people feel when I say I've never seen Star Wars. Like, okay, great. But I finally did, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. All right, moving on to round number 3. Did you ever get stuck in a dust storm when you were deployed?
Couple times. And it is a ridiculous experience because I don't know if there's anywhere else in the world, maybe the deserts of Africa, but I don't know in many places in the world that could experience these
US. Yeah, we have them here in the USA.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Arizona, Shaboobs. There's more than Penis Man there. There's also Shaboobs. So dust storms in the Middle East right now, though, are causing a huge fucking problem. I remember when we were deployed, sometimes you kind of look forward to these giant dust storms because it was kind of like a snow day, because you couldn't go out on patrols or anything like that. You couldn't really go outside the wire because if you needed QRF, if you needed backup, they wouldn't be able to get to you because the dust was so thick. Sometimes you could barely see like 2 arms lengths in front of your own face. Like you couldn't even see the person. So it was kind of like, all right, everybody hunker down, start playing spades, bring your snacks out, like just kind of hang out because there's nothing that can be done. So since April, blankets of thick, gritty haze and ominous orange skies have sent thousands to hospitals and resulted in at least 4 deaths in Iraq and Syria. The apocalyptic scenes have affected everyone. Hospitals in Syria have been on standby for residents unable to breathe. Iraq forced schools and offices in some provinces to close and declared a state of emergency. In the Gulf states, flights were halted in Kuwait, and both Saudi Arabia and the UAE issued dust storm alerts. The increasing frequency of dust storms means more problems, more loss of life, more and property, and more destruction, said Nassim Hamza, a dust researcher at a climate consulting company in Iran. So if you're into dust and you want to go to school for it, head over to the Middle East. That's like an actual job.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Dust and sandstorms represent one of the most severe, if underrated, natural hazards in dry regions. In the Middle East, they typically occur in late spring and summer, and this year has been especially severe. Dust particles can travel thousands and thousands of miles. There's those satellite images, and there's like popular Instagram pages. Sometimes they'll cover them and it's like you'll see this swirl of brown, like going halfway across Africa, through tons of countries and whatever. All that is needed to trigger is wind, a source of dust where there's not much vegetation and dry conditions. And the shamal, it's known as the shamal, but it pushes cold air through the dry and sandy soil areas of Iraq. And then next thing you know, it's going all the way down the Arabian Peninsula. This year, those storms stretched to Saudi Arabia over other Gulf states, cloaking parts of Jordan. Northern Iraq is particularly exposed. They get the worst of it. They have a sandstorm nearly every week since March this year. And it shuts down shit for days. It covers everything. It gets inside your house, no matter how much you shut your windows. And we would always try and shut up our tents and all that stuff, but everything would be covered in a layer of it. You're breathing it in. That's why we use those scarves we would pull over our faces. I have a picture of myself somewhere on the sheet here, like trying to cover my face during one. I got stuck out. I had been sent to, it was my second deployment. I was on Camp Leatherneck, and I had been sent with a small team to a small base not far outside the wire there to vet local nationals who were trying to seek civilian jobs on the base. So we're just way out of this. There was no other military people on it. Like, it was just us with civilians in these Connex boxes, like maybe 10 miles outside Leatherneck. And it was supposed to be just a day trip. A sandstorm came, and we ended up staying there for like 2 or 3 days or something like that with no.
What?
Yeah, we were.
And
stuck
were you
there
prepared?
For days.
Were you prepared for 2 or 3 days?
I mean, you're always just, but I'll tell you what, my Hanes were ripe. Yeah,
that happens.
They were right.
Tell me if you agree with this. If you get the right kind of sandstorm, it looks cool as hell because it gets like orangey, and that's not something you're normal or used to saying. Did you get like the orange sandstorms in Afghanistan?
Oh yeah, and it was so like, it did make you feel scared to see them coming. Like, I've only ever seen that in like Aladdin and shit, and all of a sudden it's this massive evil looking wall of like, and it's just barreling down, and then all of a sudden it hits, and it's like this. Sometimes when you're in it too, it's like, it's a little windy, but it's almost kind of peaceful. You're just like inside this giant dusty cloud. I don't know. It's not what I expected it to be. But they say, like, we talk about the Hunter 7 Foundation and toxic exposures. People who deployed a bunch and were in a lot of those dust storms are probably going to face consequences for that for the rest of their lives. The consequences are relentless, and many are hospitalized due to asthma exacerbated by the storms, respiratory illness, to reducing crop yields, lowering property values, steering foreign workers away from polluted places. It costs about $13 billion a year, all these sandstorms and the effects that it has. They can carry harmful pollutants, and the exposure to sandstorms can cause a ton of health problems. At least 5,000 since May, 5,000 people in Iraq have been to the hospital with breathing issues, including deaths. 3 others died in eastern Syria. It fucks up flights too. Dust storms pose a significant hazard for aviation. They reduce visibility. They're associated with strong winds that can fuck up the engines. And like,
I had a few flights delayed or canceled when I was in Iraq. We were trying to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And you get hit with a dust storm. It's like, yep, sorry, can't fly.
Yeah. In April alone, nearly 2,500 flights were canceled, and nearly 10,000 worldwide got fucked up because of these dust storms. And they're just getting worse and worse. They say by 2050, they're going to like almost quadruple or something like that. There's going to be a ton more, which led me to a couple. You're talking about, elsewhere in the world that has dust storms. Not quite a dust storm. London's Great Smog. Did you ever hear about that?
Have not. I think smog. I think San Francisco. That's the only place.
Katie Barfax coming in. Well, sometimes when it's calm, like coming in from New Jersey, I can see the smog settled over New York City. It's like that kind of orangey color. It's kind of just sitting there. But the Great Smog of London covered the city of London for 5 days in 1952. It was pollution and high pressure weather conditions. This like pocket of cold held all the coal dust down. I was looking at photos of it on Twitter the other day, and it was so dark and black out that you couldn't see in front of your face, really. It was like pitch black in the middle of the day. The city went to a standstill. They say it caused between 10 and 12,000 deaths. This 5-day smog that came. Yeah. It fucked up people's lungs, and they're breathing so bad. Like, people were like suffocating in the street. That's how bad it was. And it was the first time that they were like, okay, we really got to maybe make a couple environmental changes here. And we can't be doing that. But they called them pea soupers because the air would be as thick as pea soup. And then in the USA, shaboobs. They hit Arizona about 4 times a year. And in the 1930s, the Dust Bowl, of course, if you remember from your history classes, and 1935 was the worst one. It was known as Black Sunday, and a mountain of black clouds swept across the high plains, and famous songs were written about it. Woody Guthrie, all that stuff. But by 4 p.m., it was like midnight dark inside some of these clouds across Oklahoma and those areas. So there you go. Everything you ever wanted to know about dust. If you're trying to impress somebody at the bar, Katie Bar.
Now we have that. Thank you. You're just so good.
30 minutes worth of lame dust facts. And
you know what? It's conversation, and I love it. I actually got something similar. I got caught in a whiteout one time on top of a mountain. I was snowboarding in Utah at Snowbird. It was so bad that I had to just kind of like, if you've ever snowboarded, you're just like kind of like going on your edges, and you can't really like move because you can't see in front of you. So you don't want to end up like, Sonny Bono hit a tree. I ended up at a different resort than the one I was at. That's how bad it was because I couldn't see anything. So I just kind of just kept going down, but didn't necessarily have the right of way to go which direction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's scary too. I get
it's
it.
Scary too. If you're in a situation like that, you're going to want a pair of good boots.
Yes.
You don't want a pair of shitty boots. You're going to want a pair of Rocky boots. They build boots for men and women that serve and protect our country. They're designed and built in the U.S. for each individual branch of the military. Most recently, Rocky, side by side with the U.S. Marine Corps, has a boot specifically for Marines. The Tropic boot is very compliant. The Panama Vibrant cupped outsole also makes this boot incredibly stable and sheds underfoot debris with ease, keeping you comfortable in any terrain. I just saw a post about there's some other shitty brand of boots, not Rocky, that in the Navy that sailors wear. Did you see this? The post about this?
No.
The soles, it's on their dress shoes that they only wear a few times a year. And the soles, the company that makes them puts the shittiest, cheapest stuff in the soles. They're using toothpicks to hold them together and tape and whatever. They're buying out of reg shoes because they're tired of having to pay over and over for these shitty. They crumble apart. There's even a name for it. It's like the something rot, the name of the shoe company, which won't even bother saying their name. That's why you got to go with Rocky. They make the best boots for our service members. They make awesome boots for the times between deployments or service. So whether you're rucking in the desert, working in the yard, trudging through a sandstorm, getting outside this summer for a hike, Rocky has you covered. RockyBoots.com. Enter the code ZBT at checkout for 25% off your next pair of boots. Brings us to round number 4. Switching out our boots for our dress shoes again. Wedding, a little bit of wedding talk here.
Indeed.
You just had a wedding, and I feel like the meal was one of the biggest parts of it for you guys. Like you had Large helping you guys pick some of the menu, like your foodies.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is though too, and I think this is just a product of she and I going to so many weddings in the Northeast. The cocktail hour is very big in the Northeast. When we went to meet with our coordinator at the venue, they said, "Oh, all right, for the cocktail hour, like people usually pick like 2 or 3 things," and we're like, "Well, we need to do more than that because this is just what we're used to." Mm-hmm. So, and she is a foodie, so we definitely paid attention to the food, knowing full well too, when you get to the main course of a wedding, when you're cooking in bulk like that, you can have the best chefs in the world. You got to cook, 30 pieces of meat. There's only so much you can do. It's just not going to be something that is going to overwhelm anyone. Like, wow, that was the best prime rib I've ever had. It's just not going to happen. And our producer, Nick had 12 different
stations.
Yeah, that's common in the Northeast. 12 stations.
Shout out to the Florentine Gardens Estate in New Jersey. New Jersey is known for the cocktail hours.
Those Jersey estate weddings, man, at the big, the place is built just for the receptions. Of course. Classic.
So all of our friends, that's what we just go to expect. But go ahead. Sorry. What did your brother do?
Oh, he had a smashed potato bar at his, which you got awesome. A martini glass. And it was like just blocked with mashed potatoes. And you went down putting all the topping. Very classic.
I love that.
That's
fantastic. That's fantastic.
But yeah, and also too, like, let's be honest, I'm about to get shit-faced at this reception. I need a base. Yeah. I need some kind of base. I need a couple pigs in a blanket. I need a couple tiny quiches or what have you. I need some sort of thing. Otherwise, I might ruin your wedding.
Right.
And that's on you.
Some carbs.
For not providing me with a base.
Yeah, you got to know your guests.
That brings us to an Am I the Asshole that Cons found. And this is on Reddit. Am I the asshole for not having catering at my wedding? My female 28 and me, female 28, and my fiance, male 30, just got married 2 months ago, and we had our dream wedding. Everything was perfect. And I mean, everything. My parents and his parents helped us pay for a great chunk of the wedding, so we would be debt-free, and we are so grateful. The issue arose about a month and a half ago when my aunt started posting on Facebook about how disappointed she was with the whole ordeal, and guests began siding with her. Background, my fiance and I are huge Disney fans. And we travel to Disney World as much as we can throughout the year. Disney is such an important part not only to us, but our marriage. The issue was with our decision to not offer catering or bar services at our wedding due to routing the money and I can understand if money is tight and you can't have a caterer or you can't have an open bar, like BYOB, man, like whatever, figure it out. But it's not like they didn't have the money. Instead, they spent it on
Yep.
this towards having a Minnie and Mickey Mouse appearance on our special day. The cost to have both Minnie and Mickey for a good chunk of our time, 30 minutes, was almost exactly what our parents allotted for our catering budget. So we scheduled the appearance during our first dance and our wedding photos for going serviced food, though there were plenty of facilities at the venue where people could eat, like a food court where people could go buy their own food.
Okay.
My parents were still very supportive of us, but everyone else is being passive aggressive about it on Facebook. Am I the asshole? To those, and then they continue on for clarity. To those asking if the guests were warned, we clearly said in the invitations that there was food available at the venue. We didn't exactly spell out every restaurant's menu, but it was mentioned. There were vending machines available throughout as well.
That's a ridiculous thing. Vending machines.
What? Listen, I've been to a couple. One of the Marines' weddings that I was at was a BYOB. It was in their backyard. It was bring your own, whatever. And we all had a great time and nobody cared. That's fine. If money's tight, we're happy to do that. Like nobody cared at all. There was a keg, whatever. It was a blast. But they still had, and it was and dinner. Guess what? It was like barbecue grill food. It was like smoke pit barracks party food. No complaints. They provided something. It would, if they had nothing there and then they had like Captain America character come running out and they're like, this is why we don't have food, but I hope you like it. I'd be like, what the fuck? What?
Yes. So a few things. I think the most important thing is what you said. Listen, everybody has a different budget to deal with. Totally understand that. But they clearly had some budget. And I understand that the day is about the bride and the groom, but also if you're asking people to come be with you for that day, you should look to cater to them a little bit. I mean, a meal
spending
and
money to be there and they're
right. Well, that's the other thing people don't realize. Like, dude, people got to get, sometimes plane tickets, hotels, a gift. There's a lot of money spent to attend a wedding. So the fact that, and I don't know, you can't just assume that all your friends, unless all your friends are in a Disney for adults friend group or something, everyone's going to look at this and be scratching their heads why Minnie and Mickey are here. I'm wondering, it doesn't say here. I'm wondering if they had a DJ or a band or something, but there were so many other options here. I think it's rude to not give your guests something, be that food or booze based on what you can afford. Well, let me ask you this. If you had to have a wedding, you could only afford food or booze, what would you have?
I would do the food and do BYOB. Everybody just bring your own booze. Mix it up.
Yeah.
Bring your Whistle Pig. I would have Whistle Pig sponsor my wedding.
I think that's probably the right answer. I'd never heard of a wedding being BYO, but I think if you just told people ahead of time, hey, it's going to be BYO or even a cash bar. I've never been to a cash bar wedding either. I just think there's so many other options out there besides having Mickey and Minnie, because then Mickey and Minnie get there and people are shaking their head that does nothing for them. That Mickey and Minnie, what do you take a few pictures? You could have Mickey and Minnie cutouts and accomplish the same thing or do a photo booth. I don't know. This is just preposterous that some people are just this blind to what people expect in this world from a wedding. I don't know.
The other wedding I was at it was another military wedding. It was the one I've talked about it on here before, but where he was the booger guy of our platoon. He was the fuck up. Like just a not great guy either. Like he got in trouble for like stalking and harassing people on MySpace and like that's how old I am. But just like a weird dude. And he was getting married at the Motorcyclists for Christ Center in California. Okay. And he failed his room inspection that Thursday. And so as punishment, we all had to get our alphas on and do an alpha inspection and go to his wedding on our Saturday. Because also like nobody had RSVP'd. So we had like no guests coming. You'd think that was sad. This guy was such right before the wedding starts, we're all sitting in our alphas. He walks up and goes, "Does anybody want to be my best man?"
Oh no.
Yeah. So one of our guys went up and was like, "I'll be your best man." He also did the instead of "This is my rifle, there are many like it, but this one is mine," he did "This is my wife, there are many like her, but this one is mine."
That's kind of sweet.
Without me, my wife is useless. Without my wife, I am okay, but she is still useless. I still remember that line.
Never mind. It's no longer sweet.
He was just she walked down the aisle to Styx, I think, like lady, which is kind of cool. That's cool. They got divorced a few months later, but they only had cake. Okay. The whole thing gets done. They just passed out cake like in office space to everybody. I was like, am I going to get a piece? Am I going to get a piece? And then that was it. The wedding was over. So they didn't even really do a reception, but yeah.
I don't know. If I were these people, I would have skimmed elsewhere, maybe not do it at whatever venue they did and just cater in your backyard. Cause I've seen people who've gone to backyard weddings in a tent or whatever, and they're a lot of fun. It's not about, I don't think, it's not really about the venue. It's not about the food. Although I guess we're talking about, you got to have something to eat. I think it's about the time that you're having. And that's why I might even opt to have booze over food and just let everyone know, like, hey, we're not going to serve food. So eat a big lunch beforehand or a big dinner before you get there, and have music and booze. Cause I think that's a better recipe for a good time versus a nice meal. Cause as I said, I think anytime you're cooking for a large amount of people, it's just not going to be the best meal you've ever had, no matter where you are, no matter what the venue is. So just go with booze and make sure everyone has fun.
There you go. Go with booze. There you have it. You heard it here first. Always go with booze. Slightly more serious topic here. Round number 5 comes to us from Task and Purpose. In the wake of the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, Senator Lindsey Graham is ringing a bell for some reason. Something in a recent episode. Ladybug's here and there. He is calling to mobilize military veterans to serve as security officers at schools around the country. It is time to mobilize our retired and former service members who are willing to help secure our schools. Our schools are soft targets, he tweeted Friday. They contain our most valuable possession, our children, the future of our country, and they must be protected. In a thread on Twitter, Graham talked about allowing trained ROTC instructors to carry guns on campuses and announced he's working on creating a certification process to get some of the hundreds of thousands of retired and former military members trained and ready to be staffed as school security. No formal piece of legislation has been put forth as of June 4th. I'm going to say it. There's a fuckload of veterans out there that I really don't want guarding my son's school. Of them.
Right. I hate to say it, but like there's such a large population in our military who are now veterans who weren't the best soldiers, weren't the best Marines. So why would we want them doing this job?
I think this also conflates the idea that every military member is this wholesome, good, whatever. Like, I wouldn't want me listen, you don't want me guarding your school. I'm going to fuck that up 10 ways from Sunday. Are you kidding me? Like, what? I just feel like it paints that brush again, that like, this is what all veterans are, blah, blah, blah. Also, we got our own shit going on. Not that I wouldn't want to guard kids or whatever, but like, who then is going to drop out of what they're doing for probably a very minimum wage type job guarding a school? I don't know. It's just a very bizarre, like, to anybody who just blindly does the troop hero worship kind of thing. I'm sure this tweet was a hit, but if you really look about it and think about it, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Yeah. The suggestion of arming our military veterans to protect schools is often brought up in veteran circles, and politicians have proposed putting vets in security roles at schools over the years. But after the Uvalde shooting, which left 19 children and 2 adults dead, it's picking up steam, with Graham as one of the most prominent figures to suggest it, probably because it's a great way to steer the conversation away from what is really the problem. That's me, not Task and Purpose, saying it. It's unclear, however, what this would actually do or how Graham plans to overcome not just a wave of logistical hurdles, but also guarantee that it would work. In Uvalde, the school resource officer charged with providing security did not confront the shooter, and police took more than an hour to go after and stop the gunman. And time again, like, yes, you can find cases where a good guy with a gun stops or a good guy with a gun stops, but that's very rare. In most cases, that's not the way it works out. And if you look at the bulk of mass shootings, that's not the way that's worked out at all. Many schools around the country, including Uvalde, already have public safety officers. Some school districts even have their own police forces with dozens, if not hundreds of officers specifically tasked with protecting schools. And several of these officers are veterans themselves. The proposal from Graham and others is in some ways already being done. And I was reading too, I saw this, they collected data from these schools that have these officers and armed guards. And none have stopped shootings, but it doesn't increase in, I think it's one of those things where it creates the clash because they're there. And so more students end up getting in trouble for all sorts of different things, if that makes any sense.
No, I could see how that logic would work out.
Yeah. So it kind of causes an uptick in trouble in a different way.
Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I know a lot of schools have security. I have a very, an old coach who's a good family friend, retired police officer. Mm-hmm. He does security at a public high school here in New Jersey. It pains me that we need to have security in our schools. I don't think he carries a weapon on him when he's in school. He's licensed to carry as a former police officer in New Jersey, but I don't think he does when he's in school. I don't have children right now. I think it would bother me to know there were weapons in the school, even if they are being carried by a person who is supposedly trained and has experience with them. I just feel like if you introduce a weapon into that environment, you're introducing a factor that could then potentially lead to something negative happening. For as many people who want to say, you know, it might deter these incidents from happening in the future, there is part of me that also thinks if you bring a weapon into a school, then you're saying, I think you're accepting that maybe an accident could happen, right?
And
like,
look how many stories from the military of missing weapons. And it's because they set their weapon down for a second, got distracted, blah, blah, blah. You think that's not going to happen because people talk about teachers should be armed. You think a teacher who has 30 kids running around a classroom isn't going to be distracted and forgetful sometimes, that shit? Like, right. And instead of military personnel who will pick up the rifle and get it back to safety, you got kids in a room. Like, I just feel like all these suggestions, again, are just, that's a great way to showboat and get attention off the real issues. But this is a non-answer. This answers absolutely nothing. And instead it makes people who, again, hero worship veterans be like, that's exactly right. The veterans will fix everything. And it's like, we're dealing with our own shit, man.
Right.
As retired Marine officer Carl Forsling recently wrote, there are hundreds of thousands of schools in the U.S. So if Graham is really serious about putting veterans at schools, it would require a large mobilization of veterans. And it's unclear if the vets would need to be in military service level condition or if there would be an age restriction. A lot of us have disabilities, blah, blah, blah. Los Angeles Unified School District, the second largest in the country, has hundreds of officers on its force. Graham points to ROTC instructors, but of course, those are not in every school, and especially not in elementary schools. Schools are also faced with unique challenges from their locations in the country to aging buildings and underfunded school districts. Such an effort would take a lot of funding for mobilization, resources, and ongoing costs. As Forsling recently pointed out, only a small portion of veterans have combat experience, meaning many of the veteran guards likely need specialized training. So then that's an additional cost. Who's going to oversee this? Pentagon, the VA, the Department of Education. Would staffing veterans as guards come from school district budgets, et cetera, et cetera? So all those questions are unanswered, but Graham argued that schools should be treated like courthouses, banks, Capitol buildings when it comes to security. Perhaps, but as Uvalde, Parkland, and other incidents have shown, armed guards at schools, military veteran or not, are not a cure-all solution that Graham seems to think it is. Yeah,
and I don't want to, this goes deeper, and we're not talking about whether people should have weapons or not, but for me, just looking at this story on the surface, it doesn't seem like the answer to a weapon being in schools to throw more weapons at it. Right? Like, I'm not crazy in thinking that. Like, there's got to be other solutions.
I'm all for responsible gun ownership. A lot of people in my life are very responsible gun owners, and this is just not a solution. He knows exactly what it's doing. It's distracting from the conversation. And
listen, I get it. Veterans need jobs when they leave the military, so he could be playing to that as well. But there's plenty of veterans who honorably serve in the military, and then they say that was part of my life, and I want to move on to a new part of my life that doesn't involve protecting others, and I want other people to do that, and they don't want any part of this. I think it goes back to what we were saying, that not all veterans have combat experience. Not all veterans are created equal. We're all very different. We all had very different experiences in the military. My experience in the Army maybe was similar to what you and Chaps did in the Marines. And I'm sure there's a lot of crossover.
I think it like plays into the idea that every veteran is like Rambo, and a lot of us are just giant, and we're not in the best possible way. But there are plenty of people that, did basic, basic courses and then went and they did administrative jobs their entire time in the military and maybe never fired a weapon outside of yearly training or whatever, but we're not very proficient. So I don't like when veterans are painted with the same brush as it appears that Lindsey Graham is doing right here. But I think that's the buzzword. It's like, well, if I put veterans on this initiative, no one's going to hate it because everybody loves veterans. Mm-hmm. And how dare you speak ill of whatever.
Right.
Well, we will.
So if you speak ill of this idea, you hate America.
You don't want me. I will say the one thing every veteran could get behind is looking smooth, my friends. And you want to do that with Freedom Grooming. Freedom Grooming makes the best electric razor and shaving essentials for all of you balds. That includes Captain Cons. That includes Chaps. That includes the little side spots that I hide with my bangs. So with the Flex Series kit, you'll get the smoothest shave of your life. Flexible blades contour to the shape of your head for a baby smooth shave every time, especially Cons. He has one of those wrinkly pug heads in the back. So this Flex Series could get in there. It's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower with or without shaving cream, wet or dry. If you're in the military, you always get stuck out in the field doing that dry shave. So
that's the worst.
Freedom Grooming is for you. Shave 50% more hair in a single stroke compared to traditional razors and in under 5 minutes. Freedom has a refill plan, the Close Shave Plan. You'll never run out of fresh, sharp blades delivered to your door every 6 weeks with free shipping. All active Close Shave Plan members are upgraded to a lifetime warranty, and it's completely customizable. Adjust, skip, or cancel your plan anytime. This truly sounds perfect, especially if you're in the military. Call to action here is that Freedom is offering our listeners 20% off when you go to freedomgrooming.com/ZBT. That's freedomgrooming.com/ZBT. I'll say too, with the shore coming up, I was just down the shore this week. Had to keep my shorts on over my bathing suit, friend.
Okay.
Nobody wants to catch a stray. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I do.
Pubes. Could have used a little Freedom Grooming.
We all could.
You guys are lucky you don't have to deal with that shit with your shorts on.
Sure, you're right. We can always hide behind our shorts.
It's very stressful. Nobody recovers from that.
No, never.
And your whole family's sitting in their beach chairs, so they're at crotch level. You're talking to them about God knows what, and they're only focused on that one little pube blowing in the breeze, sticking out of your underbritches, your bathing suit.
And then your whole day is ruined.
And then you look down and you go, "Oh my God,
I wish I had Freedom Grooming."
I think back throughout my life, I can recall every single person whose pubes I saw that I wish I hadn't seen. It's really something to think about.
Sure.
And pubes are natural. Don't get me wrong. You shouldn't have to shave if you don't want to. I'm just saying, personally, I don't need some Brillo pads sticking out of my Speedo. You know what I'm saying?
I do know. And I also know that racking around your brain right now is figuring out a way to transition away from talking about this. And you just can't seem to find it.
I don't know.
We can just do a clean break.
It is. But when you're smooth though, you feel like you could ride your bicycle with both your legs up on the handlebars, just cruising right through town with no underwear on. It's saved rounds.
Yes.
You got any?
Sure do.
What are they?
Record this, it is June 6th, so obviously it is the anniversary of D-Day, and not a year will go by where I don't read General Eisenhower's letter to the troops making the invasion on D-Day, and that always gets me. And it's just, I don't know, I'll never, no matter how many years go by, I will never be able to wrap my brain around what those folks did on that day. And when you consider the weight of the world on your shoulders, I don't know, that's just unbelievable. Something else, number 2, I didn't realize that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated on June 6th. So he shares that anniversary. And I saw a quote from Bobby Kennedy, and I thought it was very apropos for everything we're dealing with right now in our country. And the quote says, Few will have the greatness to bend history itself, but each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation. And I think that's so perfect with all the terrible things that we're dealing with. And people always think like, well, I'm just one person. I can't do anything. I can't affect any sort of change. And he's saying like, well, you can do something. You can change something small. So, because there's only going to be a few people that come along that just completely alter history. So just focus on doing one of those small things.
Mm-hmm.
And then last few things, shout to Brendan Nickturn, Second Lieutenant Brendan Nickturn, Army graduate who had his PLL debut. PLL debut this weekend. Yes, lacrosse, Premier Lacrosse League. He had 2 goals and 1 assist, which not too shabby for a rookie performance there. So shout to Lieutenant Nickturn there. And then lastly, we were sitting around the fire pit on Saturday night, and I was just me and my parents. My younger sister had gone to bed. My older sister wasn't down this weekend. And Alex, as I mentioned, was with her girlfriends. And I posed this question to my mom and my dad. If you took me at 22 versus my dad at 22 and just put us in a cage match, who would win? And without hesitation, my mom was like, oh, no, she said my dad. And then we had a little discussion and she wavered a little bit, but I was just a little taken aback that she was just very quick to say my dad. So I don't know. You've met my dad. Although we didn't know him at age 22, what are your thoughts?
There is something about Al that makes me feel like if he was in an emergency situation where they're like, you got to bend this steel into a pretzel, he'd be like, fine.
Yeah.
Like there's something very tough about Al.
Yes.
That I'm sorry. I do feel like, yep. I feel like he could bludgeon you.
Yes. He could just pound me with his fist.
I mean, I have Rough and Rowdy's coming up, Cons. We're always looking for a new unique angle. Cons versus Al.
It's the father-son match nobody asked for.
It's the next Rough and Rowdy theme is father-son. It's all parents fighting their kids. So if you want to get in on it, I would watch the shit out of it. No offense.
I think people would.
I still think Al could maybe beat your ass.
Yeah, I'm not just saying it's an easy win for me, even at these ages currently that we're
tired after softball, then.
Yeah, seriously.
You're not going to stand up against Al very well. That's all I have to say.
That's true. Oh, sorry. I had one more.
By all means.
There was somebody who did this a few weeks ago, but a retired Air Force colonel. He was a kidney donor and he became the first living kidney donor to climb Mount Everest. David Ashley from Arlington. So shout to David Ashley for climbing Mount Everest after having given a kidney to somebody.
Very cool.
Yeah. That's all I got.
That's all you got. I'm trying to think. I feel like I got nothing. I will say on a note, like rolling on kind of long trips with the baby when I'm solo.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of times where I think like, oh man, I don't know if I can pull this softball. It takes like a lot of ingenuity sometimes, like not ingenuity, but a lot of like creativity and like it's adapt, improvise, and overcome. When you're doing stuff with a baby, you got to set the bar, like not low in a bad way, but like keep your expectations way down and then figure. I'm rambling here, but sometimes I feel like my time in the military has helped me be more positive and do more stuff than I usually would. Because I know that like you can accomplish ridiculous, wacky things with not that much sometimes if you put your mind to it. So sometimes, I guess I'm thinking about just sometimes, being in the military helps me with that stuff. And also I got to see my cousin, her husband was in the military. He retired, but he did like 6 tours to Iraq or something like that. And he was down and he had his boonie cover. He was wearing his boonie cover on the beach. And I feel like only certain people can pull that off. And he totally pulled it off. He had his fishing pole, kind of an old timer vibe. And it's like, you can wear the boonie on the beach. I couldn't.
You don't look like a weirdo.
Kate, it's also exciting, like with the kids, like how their imaginations run. So really, as an adult and as the parent, the world is your oyster. Like you can really create anything that in any other situation would look absolutely ridiculous. But to them, it's like the funnest, like the most fun. And it just to see their faces, and I start getting like really sappy here, but I'm a total mush for my daughter. To see her face light up when I'm just building we're playing like build a castle every night before she goes to sleep now. It's the same castle every single time, but man, does she get excited when that thing goes up. So
Oh yeah.
don't feel bad about your ingenuity. It's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, it's simple. When we were kids growing up, we would ask my dad, hey, dig us a hole. That was it. That was the extent. It's like, dig us when we were down at the shore. Dig us a hole. He would dig us a hole, and it was, I don't know, we played in a hole. It was very simple and awesome.
That's the big trick for parents going to the beach with kids of any age up until the teen years. The bigger the hole, and make sure it's wide enough that it won't collapse in or whatever. But they'll just run in and out of it all day long for a week. That's the key to having beach beers on your own. Dig a fucking hole. My God. Anyways, that's this edition of Zero Blog 30. We'll be checking in with you next week.
Zero Blog 30.
Zero Blog 30. That's it. Sound. Oh, it feels good to say this for myself. Sound the retreat.